Hi. I'm going to talk about something that doesn't involve CrossFit directly, but it involves CrossFit indirectly. No Dave Castro, no Eric Rosa, none of that. And it kind of comes up with how I like to build my channel based off of transparency and honesty. And when you scroll through the internet, a lot of the times you'll look for something, and it will tell you almost everything that you could figure out if you went to the company's website by itself. And I don't really know what good that does. So if you look at product reviews, it'll say, oh, it does this, it does this, it does this. And I recently experienced this when I had my car stolen. I was looking into new cars, and I would go to YouTube and I would look at some people who would say, oh, it's got this much horsepower and it does 0 to 60 in this, and when you get this package, this, and this are included. And I go, well, I could have gone to the company's website, figured all this out. I don't know why I need you to tell me all this stuff, dude. So, me dude is going to tell you some stuff about the Whoop, more notably the Whoop 4.0, that you're not going to read on the company's website. So, I've had a Whoop, I'm looking down because I have all these things on my phone, since May of 2017. And I have a grand total of 1,431 recoveries, which span almost 4 years now, because I've gone through periods where I haven't worn it, I put it back on. I very much like to treat myself and my life and my fitness as a science experiment. I do believe it's the way that you can get the most out of yourself, you can learn the most out of yourself, you can reap all the rewards that have to do with exercise. And this thing has been a very great companion for me. Not this thing, the other ones, the original, the 2.0 and the 3.0. I remember that I was so into it that I would very much dictate my night's sleep, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to try and do a cold shower tonight. I'm going to do a 5-minute one for a week, and then next week I'm going to do a 10-minute one, and then I'm going to take a week off, and I need to reset the control, and then I would do a 20-minute cold shower, and I would see if it would drop my heart rate during the night, because your resting heart rate, based upon your previous night's sleep, very much played into your recovery score. And your recovery score, granted that I would just kind of go about my day as normal. I wouldn't say, oh, it's this high, so I would do more, and it was this low, so I'm going to take a rest day. I would just kind of do what I would do because I needed to do things to get to where I wanted to be within the competitive community that I was in. So within all of this, I got a very good understanding of things that would help, things that would hurt. The ultimates, where if you drink alcohol, it's going to tank your recovery score. So if you have 2 or 3 drinks, then all of a sudden your HRV is down, your resting heart rate is down. Those things, I'll tell you really quick, because I don't want to tell you everything about everything, because that's not what I told you I would do. But your resting heart rate is a very linear indicator to your fitness level. The lower your resting heart rate, typically the more aerobically fit you are. Typically, there's always exceptions. Your HRV is very age dependent, but it's also an expression of who you are as a person. You'll see that the more up and atom people typically, have lower HRVs, and the more like relaxed and even keel people, I have noticed through the 30 people or so that I got signed up onto the freaking Whoop through my time in the gym, the even keel people had higher HRVs. If they were younger, they were even higher. So over the course of time, the Whoop does figure out who you are. And by that I mean it takes about a week's averages of HRVs and resting heart rates. And if you're higher or lower, if you sleep a long time or a short time, it'll spit out a recovery score. It's a little game you can play, and it's cool. And the thing that it had best going for it when you compare it to the other wearables, like the Apple Watch and the Fitbit and the Garmin Fenix and the Polar heart rate monitors, that it was very true to itself. So if I did something at a certain pace and felt a certain way, I could very much assume that I go look at my phone and say, hey, my heart rate was here. This happens after about 4 years of becoming attuned to myself with the thing. So if I did, which I'm going to talk about, my rowing interval today, I did 2,300 meter rows, which it takes about a minute, and then I took a minute rest. So it's a minute on and a minute off for what ends up being 40 minutes. I would know where I was at based upon this thing over the course of my 4 years. In the middle of it today, and I was broadcasting my heart rate, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to look at it. And I looked at it, and it said I was at 140 beats per minute. And I go, wow, I wouldn't have thought that. And usually I'm pretty spot on to that. I'm like probably 160, 165, 170. 150 would have been okay, but when it's 140, I'm like, all right, something's going on. So I started to watch it pretty closely. During my rest time, it would just stay at 140. And then I started an interval, a hard interval, probably 85%, where you should expect for it to jump 10 to 15 to 20 beats depending on the day and everything. And it went down from 140 to 130 within the middle of an interval. And then I started resting, and it just stayed there. And I was like, all right, I'm going to clean the thing off. So I cleaned the sensor off, and I kept it in the same spot. I cleaned my wrist off, and it was telling me about the same thing. It really didn't go over 150. And this is, at this point in time, I'm hurting kind of bad. I still expected it to be telling me maybe 160, 65, 70, and it was in the 40s. I'm like, all right, I'm going to move it up. Same thing. And I should tell you that I'm doing intervals. So I'm like 8 in, 9 in, 10 in of my 20 total intervals. And after about 10 of them, I'm like, all right, I'm going to switch wrists. I'm going to put on this wrist. It was telling me the same thing on this wrist too. I'm like, all right, either there's something really wrong with me, which is why I'm talking about this, because I think some people might need to know that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. Because I went and I grabbed this thing. I have it sitting over there. I'll put this on clients when I'm working with them. If they don't have a heart rate monitor, I'll put it on there. And it's more or less just a tool so I can have some more insight other than just looking at them. Put this thing on, and I do an interval. I'm like 12 or so deep at this point. Lo and behold, the Apple Watch, 174. There we go. That's what I expected. And I'm sitting there looking at the Whoop, and I'm like playing. I changed wrists on my 1 minute interval, and I put this one here and that one there, re-cleaned off the sensor, and this thing's still saying no higher than 155. It's driving me insane. But the Apple Watch on the opposite wrist, I'm like, maybe this one is skewing things. And nope, it was the same thing. It was still 170 at the top, which is what I've come to expect over my years of wearing these things. 170-ish at the top when I do my 300 hard, and then it trickles down to about 150. The Apple Watch was doing it. So where this thing, over the course of years, where I've had multiple people jump on a Whoop program, and I've talked to them about how good it is and how it's the best fitness thing within the space. So if you really care about your fitness and you want the best analytics, then you're going to use a Whoop. If you want to track your steps and you want a connection to the internet and you like to check your text on your phone, you get an Apple Watch. And it turns out that the sensor on the back of this thing, because it's made by a billion or trillion dollar company, was at this point beating the crap out of this thing. I've heard a lot of issues with the 4.0 recently. The 2.0 never had issues with that. Sometimes it would die really quick, and because it would die, the 2.0, I would message the company and go, hey guys, I'm getting, 6 hours battery life out of this, and it happened a handful of times. I had a drawer that had 6 Whoops in it, 6 Whoop 2.0s, because they would just send me a new one. They go, yeah, we know that happens. Here's a new one. And I had it for so long. They're, yep, here you go. You're an OG member. No charge. And I'm like, this is great. I love the Whoop. They take care of their people. And then when I had the 3.0, no issues anymore with the I think I had one the whole time. I had one Whoop the whole time. Bought a couple bands because the bands would get gross, but that's to be expected. I mean, it's just a piece of cloth you're wearing on your wrist. No issues with the 3.0 ever. 5-day battery life, never ruined there. But the 4.0, I've read on forums, and I've had people messaging me because I'm the Whoop guy in my little circle. They go, Andrew, have you noticed that? I'm like, yeah. Have you noticed that? Yeah. Like, my heart rate doesn't get as high. My resting heart rate is all messed up. So with the resting heart rate getting messed up, I used to play the games at night where I'd see how low I could get it. Like, what could I do? Could I take cold showers, smoke a little weed? Would that make it go lower? And it would. Certain things would directly correlate. The same way alcohol would make your resting heart rate rise real high. If you do things like sleep in a real cold room, dark, and you sleep for 7 or 8 hours and you didn't have to pee in the middle of the night, you would see that your resting heart rate would sit lower. I'd get as low as 28 beats a minute. And present day, it gets no lower than 45. And it starts to make you think that there's something wrong with you internally. But when I do this workout today, and I'm looking at it as I'm in the moment with the Apple Watch now as my companion, and I see that there's something going on, I feel this way, it should say this, and I have been doing this for a long time, almost 15 years. I know that this is how I should feel. I know that it's not me that has a problem, it's the freaking the wearable that has an issue. So what I'm getting at here is that I have had the issue, I said I wouldn't talk about CrossFit, that they are selling out. They could be owned by Coca-Cola, you don't know who owns them anymore. They're not owned by Eric Roza, who you think they're owned by. there's a bunch of people who are trying to make a bunch of money, and there was all these headlines recently about how Whoop is now they have a $3 billion influx of money because they wanted to pump up the market, and they released the 4.0, and it seems almost prematurely because they released it and then you couldn't get it for a couple weeks, but a couple weeks turned into a couple months for me, myself, and everyone that I knew. And then if you ordered one today, I know a guy who ordered one 3 or 4 days ago, spent $300 on the spot for the Whoop, and then once the order came in, it goes, you're expected to get it in 8 weeks. Within that, I kind of have a shred of hope that in that 8 weeks, they're going to fix whatever the hell is wrong with the thing. I had a little mishap with the 3.0, and I messaged Whoop support the same way that I would when I had the 2.0, and at that point in time, they go, we can't help you. You just got to buy a new one. I don't want to buy a new one. I mean, maybe I should because you guys were so good to me, but this is an issue that you would just have fixed in the past. And it wasn't a battery issue. I believe that it was just I ended up needing a firmware update, so I know that that's not an issue with this one. I have the firmware updated, and basically what I'm getting at here is that I don't want people worrying about their Whoops. I want them to realize that sometimes good things come to an end. I've had this thing for so long, and I just wanted to be a little bit transparent and tell you some stuff that you're probably not going to see on the internet. You're going to see the people who are saying, the Whoop 4.0, now with this much battery life, and it does this, and it can tell you how warm you are, and it's going to use that metric to tell you how recovered you are, but it's not going to tell you that it no longer is as valid as it was in years past due to whatever the hell is going on behind the scenes. So there's my insight. Let me know what you think. I've never said it, but go ahead and subscribe if you've gotten this far. That'd be sweet. Comments are always appreciated. I want to know if your Whoop is screwing your life up. It's not going to screw me up anymore. Bye.